Hello and welcome back. Today we will be reading White Lies: How the South Lost the Civil War, then Rewrote the History by Ann Bausum. All right, today we'll be reading line number 9. Lee's loss at Gettysburg wasn't his fault. Before the Lost Cause got involved, it was hard to consider the Civil War history of Gettysburg without finding fault with the general who started the battle, Robert E. Lee. In 1863, 2 years into a war fought almost exclusively on Southern soil, Lee decided to go on the offense and take the fight across the border. Up to that point, the U.S. military had fared poorly in its matchups with the Confederacy. Lee thought the Northern support for the war might falter if its own territory was seen as under threat. Lee's invasion during the early July 1863 triggered 3 days of fighting in and around Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Some of the most famous encounters of the entire war took place on this ground, including the ill-fated Confederate assault known as Pickett's Charge, which resulted in the deaths of half its Southern participants. Lee's venture into the Northern Territory proved to be a disaster for the Confederacy. By the end of the campaign, Lee had lost a third of the invading force, with an estimated 28,000 men dead, disabled, or captured, men the South would find impossible to replace. Instead of turning the tide of war in the South's favor, this campaign came to be seen as the juncture that led to its defeat. Jubal Early quickly realized after the war that in order to burnish Lee's reputation, someone else would need to shoulder the blame for Gettysburg. Soon after Lee's death in 1870, Early settled on former Confederate General James Longstreet. Longstreet, like Lee, had trained at West Point and had served in the U.S. Army before resigning his commission to fight for the Confederacy. During the war, he earned the reputation of being one of Lee's most capable officers, but his behavior after the war left him vulnerable to attack. In the eyes of the Lost Cause promoters, like Early, the former general from South Carolina and Georgia had committed the unforgivable sin of accepting the South's defeat. Just like John Mosby Longstreet had joined the Republican Party instead of supporting the choice of most Southern whites, the conservative Democrats. He backed the presidency of Ulysses S. Grant and urged fellow whites to cooperate with the South's post-war Reconstruction. Early was able to shift blame from Lee by concocting a false accounting of the events at Gettysburg. As a bonus, he was able to punish Longstreet at the same time. Among other charges, Early suggested that Confederates could have won at Gettysburg if Longstreet had reached the battlefield sooner during the second day of fighting. Furthermore, because the defeat at Gettysburg had been so damning, Longstreet, not Lee, deserved blame for the South's ultimate defeat. In fact, the historical record offered no evidence for Early's charges. Nonetheless, the accusation began to stick. Then the lie grew. After the war, William Nelson Pendleton had become Lee's minister in Lexington, Virginia, and Early's ally in promoting the Lost Cause. Pendleton had been Lee's artillery chief during the war and was present at Gettysburg, so people believed him when he claimed that Lee had issued a sunrise order for the second day of the battle, meaning that Longstreet should begin his attack at dawn. Pendleton accused Longstreet of culpable disobedience for ignoring the supposed order and showing up later, seemingly doomed the Confederates to defeat. In fact, no such document or order was ever issued. Pendleton had made it all up. But because Longstreet supported the Republican Party, he became the perfect lost cause scapegoat. Although he tried to challenge the existence of a sunrise order, he lacked the instincts and finesse to mount a convincing case. Southern whites trusted the word of Pendleton, a Confederate enthusiast, rather than that of the Grant supporting Longstreet. Pendleton's lie stuck. And that was lie number 9. Lee's loss at Gettysburg wasn't his fault.